Today, we're digging into the story of a leader at the absolute top of his game, the biblical King David. For a moment in time, he seemed to be the perfect model for what a king should be. But, as we're about to see, even the most perfect record can have a fatal flaw just waiting to show itself. It's a question we're still asking, right? What really makes a leader great? Is it military genius? Is it personal integrity? What about loyalty? Well, the ancient story of King David is this incredible, complex case study that dives into all of it. Okay, let's get into this. So what we're going to do here is walk through 3 specific chapters from the book of 2 Samuel. And these chapters, wow, they build David's reputation to this almost unbelievable peak. He's the winning general, the fair king, the loyal friend. He is doing everything right, which is what makes what happens next so completely shocking. Okay, so right after God makes this big covenant promise with David, David gets right back to work on the #1 job for any king back then, securing his nation. You have to remember, Israel was in a really tough neighborhood, just surrounded by hostile powers, and it was David's job to make his people safe. And he was absolutely relentless. He just systematically dismantled every single threat on every border. Look at this. He subdues the Philistines in the west, the Moabites in the east, the Arameans up north, and the Edomites down south. This wasn't just about winning a few battles. This was about building a fortress of security for his people. He created a level of peace they had never known before. But what's so fascinating is how he did it. He completely ignored the standard king's playbook of the day. You see, the law for Israelite kings specifically warned them not to stockpile horses or hoard a bunch of personal wealth. So what does David do? Instead of building a huge chariot army, he actually neutralizes most of the captured horses. And instead of filling his own pockets, he dedicates all the gold and silver from his conquest to God for the future temple. It's like he was leading based on a set of core principles, not just on what was considered best practices at the time. And this gets to the heart of the whole thing, a point the story makes again and again. David's success wasn't just because he was some brilliant strategist. The narrative says, flat out, that his victories were a direct blessing from God because of his obedience. He was trusting the system, and man, was it paying off. So he's totally proven himself as a public leader, a king. But what about David the man? A leader's real character isn't always tested on the battlefield. Sometimes it's tested by the quiet, private promises they made a long, long time ago. You see, years, maybe even decades before he ever sat on the throne, David made a sworn promise to his best friend, Jonathan. And Jonathan was the son of his great rival, King Saul. David promised he'd always show kindness to Jonathan's family. Now he's the undisputed king. He could easily forget about that old promise, but instead, he actively goes looking for a way to fulfill it. And he finds Jonathan's only surviving son, a man named Mephibosheth, who is disabled and basically living in hiding. And just look at what he does. He doesn't just, send him a check. He restores all the land that belonged to Mephibosheth's grandfather, King Saul, and then, this is the incredible part, he gives him a permanent seat at the royal dinner table. He treats the descendant of his former enemy like he was one of his own sons. Talk about leadership integrity. This is honoring your word long after it's convenient or even necessary. Now, to really get what happens next, we have to understand this one crucial cultural idea. Back then, a messenger wasn't just a mail carrier. They were a walking, talking extension of the king who sent them. To honor the messenger was to honor their king. To insult them, well, that was a direct slap in the face to the king himself. Okay, so keeping that in mind, look at how this plays out. The king of a neighboring nation, the Ammonites, dies. David, wanting to keep the peace, sends a group of officials to offer condolences. But the new king's advisors convince him they're actually spies. So he humiliates them in the worst way imaginable. He has half of their beards shaved off, a massive sign of dishonor, and their clothes cut short, exposing them. This wasn't a prank. It was a political declaration of absolute contempt for King David, and it meant war was now unavoidable. So David sends his army out under his general Joab, and what do you know? They win. A complete and decisive victory. So even in a war that David didn't start, a war that came from an act of peace, he still comes out on top. His record is perfect. He's militarily unbeatable, personally honorable, and a just ruler. He has literally done everything right. He's the ideal king. The kingdom is safe, his integrity is solid, and it's right here, right at this absolute peak of success, that the story slips in this small, almost throwaway detail that is about to change everything. The scene is set. It's springtime. And in the ancient world, spring was campaign season. It was the time for war, the time when kings were expected to lead their armies into battle. And sure enough, David's army is on the move, heading out to finish that fight with the Ammonites. Everything seems perfectly normal, just business as usual.
And then we get this line. The way it's written in the original Hebrew, the whole rhythm of the story just stops. It slows down to make sure you catch this one critical piece of information. But David remained in Jerusalem. The one time, the one place a king is supposed to be, with his army leading from the front, he stays home. He's in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And this just leaves us with this huge, lingering question. With a perfect track record, total success, and everyone's admiration, David has nothing left to prove. So does that peak of success actually create the perfect conditions for the biggest failure? When you think you're completely untouchable, is that the exact moment you're most at risk? Because that one decision, the choice to just stay behind, sets the stage for the most infamous and tragic chapter of David's entire life, a chilling reminder that even the greatest among us can have a fatal crack in the armor.